When you walk up to my Lego city, the first thing that you see is this beautiful beach with the old fishing store, then the boardwalk with the little mini modular buildings, and the Ferris wheel, some other modular buildings, the raised train line with the downtown core, the Bricklink Designer Program construction site, the bowling alley, but then there's this. It's just like this base plate area. There's just like some exposed green base plates. Nothing really happened with it. Of course, this area does accommodate the ground line, the train track there, but it doesn't really look that good. It's just sort of a bunch of exposed studs. So today, I'm going to work on upgrading this area with my first green space. So recently, I've been acquiring a bunch of pieces from the Lego store Pabwall, Bricklink, and also Lego Online. I plan to use a bunch of those pieces to transform this area with the introduction of texture, bushes, and trees. Boy, oh boy, I have done a lot of landscaping projects. That means I've built a lot of trees and a lot of bushes and done a lot of texturing. But you know what? It truly does transform the Lego city and just makes it look more natural. So I look forward to building even more trees today. And I'll be doing that with all of these pieces. Got some browns there. Also some limbs of all sorts of different colors. I am running low on dark orange and yellow, unfortunately, so I won't be able to create very many autumn trees, but I do have all sorts of different shades of green, which will come in super handy. Then I still have some pieces to create some of those Technic trees as well, and a large bag of leaves, so let's get started. I think the other day when we were building trees, we added 47 of them. And I just think that Lego trees is something that you can never have enough of. The more that you add to your Lego city, the better. And I want to take this project seriously. And I know that I said prior to this that I am working on my first green space. But what I meant by that is my first green space, like in the downtown core. I guess we recently added one out front of the train station there. But that's by like the farm. I want to add random green spaces throughout the downtown core just because there's like so many buildings. And to have a nice pop of color in there with some trees and maybe some greenery would look pretty good. You know, there's nothing wrong with having vegetation randomly throughout the city. Now, the trees that are mainly in my Lego city and the little planters are actually the ones built with the cylinders. I'm out of reddish-brown cylinders, so I'm not building any of the ones like that. But eventually I need to go through and actually upgrade some of the ones that are found throughout the Lego city and swap up the types, because you can see we're building all sorts of variety today. And I wanted to sit down today and not build all of the same tree type. I wanted to build a bunch of different ones. So I'm actually experimenting with some new varieties and colors and part types today as well. I must say though, I'm pretty lucky. The Pabwall has treated me very well, and actually I've got a lot of the parts that I'm using today off the Pabwall. However, with that said, I've also been ordering parts from Lego and from Bricklink for a very long time, and I've accumulated quite the large part selection. It's actually pretty cool that I'm at the point where I can just be like, okay, what are we going to do today? Oh, we're going to work on green space. All right. I know I have the plate to do it, the brick to do it, and the ability to create a bunch of custom vegetation just from the parts that I have in my inventory. So it's a pretty good feeling, especially when you want to build like more custom stuff or integrate custom trees or just do anything in your Lego city. Just having the parts is the most difficult part of that. Like, that's actually a fact. Like, visualizing what you want to do. Okay, I want to build trees, or I want to build this building using masonry bricks, and I want to do this, and I want to have this particular windowsill or this design. That's the easy part. Getting the parts to actually do that and planning out how many of these parts you need, and then ordering those in particular from Lego or from Bricklink if Lego doesn't have them, that is the most difficult part of doing stuff like this. So it's pretty awesome that I have a pretty large part inventory now. 29 more trees made for the Lego city. That's crazy. 29 trees. But you know what? I love trees, and they're just going to do a great job of filling up that available space there. I did some old techniques and also did some new techniques as well. So these are the classic ones. Like, these are just super simple to build. You can build them in all different sizes. The size is just determined by the piece of flex tubing that I run through the center. You can see the bottom of it there. So it's 2x2 circular bricks, and then just the leaf elements, both styles, like the limbs and the leaves, various colors, and then various sizes. Yeah, so pretty awesome trees there. Now, the thing I like about these ones is they're very quick to make. They're easy to make. They're simple. They look good, and yeah, I just like these trees. They're just, I don't know, efficient and get the job done, and they take less parts than some of these other ones. These ones are slightly modified, so they're essentially the same, but they're modified. Rather than just running the leaves through the flex tubing like that, I actually I put these on the 4 studs available on these circular bricks. And that allows you to hinge these branches. So all of these branches can hinge, and then you can see the connectors inside. More part intensive because you have to like connect your leaves. And actually did these ones a little bit differently. So the hinged elements there are at different heights. And how did I do that? Well, I actually just put some flowers on them. So you can see that one there has 2 flowers on it. And then the one beside it has no flowers. That puts the leaves at different heights, so they sort of integrate better. Whereas if they're at the same height, then sometimes you can have problems having them go down, right? Because they sort of run into each other. So I did that differently this time around, but I've done some of these specifically in the zoo. You can see some of the style. And then I just did some various colors, right? This one's the green and dark green. And then this one's like lime green and whatever, a few different shades of green there. Now this one back here is very similar to the ones that we were building the other day. It's slightly modified. I ran out of some pieces, so what I did was actually extended the axle pieces that run through the center there, because I had some spare axles, and then I was able to put those alternating directions. Whereas the ones that we built the other day actually use like, see the black pieces there? They use like the 3-pronged ones. So I was able to use a bunch of spare pieces that I had left over from that huge tree building session to build one of those. And then I was like, well, maybe I've already built enough of these. And I saw this really neat thing on Instagram the other day where somebody was actually feeding these leaf elements through the small leaf elements. He was using the same color, so olive tops and olive leaves, but I had these sand green ones. I was like, okay, well, let's put a whole bunch of these, which I found on the pad wall a long time ago, into the sand green limb elements, build a smaller version of the Technic trees that I was building the other day, more simplistic version, and then, whoops, and then we got this awesome looking tree, right? And what I really like about these is when you put them together, it creates a really nice canopy. And this is just a really good looking tree. Different color and different style. What I could do if I really wanted to is actually take another limb element and jam it full of leaves again, and then stick it or adapt it onto the other leaves, so it just fills in some of that void space between the leaf elements. But I think that looks really good, and I'm really excited about this particular design. Of course, I always knock things over and break things as I'm showcasing them, because I always choose to use one hand while filming. Nobody likes using a tripod, right? So that's a classic Bricksie maneuver. Awesome. Now, another thing that I have that I want to integrate into some of that open space is a spare bonsai tree. My mom had a bonsai tree on display in her house for a while, and then she got this copper, or like this bonsai tree that's made out of copper, and she's like, I only need one bonsai tree. So she gave me this one. I was like, perfect. I'm going to use this one in the Lego City. So that's awesome. Also, I created a hedge. I've always talked about creating some sort of hedges to block, like to use as a blockade for train track. And I think this hedge looks really cool. It just uses those small limb elements that I found on the pad wall and the leaf elements that I found on the pad wall as well. And this is actually 1 base plate long. And I've got a cool spot for that planned. And you know what's really neat about it is the fact that it's very versatile. It can actually articulate. So you could create this as big or as little as you wanted. And for example, if you wanted it to curve around something, you could do that. For example, if I wanted to have it like this in a courtyard or something and put a bench here and then have trees behind it, I could do that. Now, I chose to only put these leaves on one side, and that's because I'm putting it up against a flat wall and I didn't want those leaves to interfere. But of course, we could put those leaves on both sides as well and make like a complete hedge. Very basic, but it gets the job done. And once again, I found both of these pieces on the pad wall. So that is a great use of parts from pieces that I found on the pad wall. Now before I place those trees, I've got a bunch of work to do here. I've got 2 giant bags. One of them is full of 1x2 green slopes and the other one is 1x2 green cheese slopes. I am going to use a mass amount of those to texture this entire area. I want this area to look phenomenal. Phenomenal, eh? That's the goal, I guess. So on the edge here, I'm only going to use the slopes and the cheese slopes because I used to put plants there and I'd knock them off the table constantly because you like brush up against the table and the next thing you know, you got a piece of bamboo on the floor. Happens way too often, so that's why I chose to just put that along the edge there. Underneath the train track though, that's a different story. You got a little bit more room to work with there. I'm not going to bump into that, so I'm going to use the slopes, but I'm also going to add some of the little pre-molded trees and some of the trees that we built today and also some of the pre-molded bushes and the pieces of bamboo. And I think all of those green elements do a great job of working together to create a phenomenal look, don't they? Yeah, I'm pretty stoked on it, that's for sure. Definitely better than having just studs. Like just regular old studs or some nice texture with some vegetation. Definitely way better. So let's just say that I took care of the easy part first because this whole area here isn't mills plated. So the mills plates that I have in my city are 1 brick and then 1 plate, but these were like all sorts of weird plate. There was some exposed base plate. There was some that was a plate high, some that was 2 plates high. And it was just a scattered mess. And it didn't look good at all next to that flexi track train track, which I'm not a huge fan of either, but it has to look like that just so that it can take that corner perfectly and go down from the ballast track height to the ground level height where the train track is actually built into the road. So I'm actually forced to use flexi track there just because of that telebeam that's currently covered in Lego and for the downhill grade as well. But the difficult part is actually building the mills plate that goes around that weird train track because it's such an odd shape. And specifically because I'm pretty much out of green brick. So I'm actually like stacking 3 plates on top of each other to make a green brick just to get it going around that track. Whereas if I had like a whole bunch of 1x1 green bricks or 1x2 green bricks, it would be a lot easier. But it is what it is. I'm making it work. And rather than having it like 1 plate high or whatever, I'm making it the standard mills plate depth. So I'm actually like embedding that train track in the mills plate. So it took a lot of different parts to try and make that work and all of these different weird plates. There's one that's like cut to go around that telebeam and just a whole bunch of weird things happening in this corner. So getting the mills plates all fixed up before I add detail and vegetation was essential because that's what we're going to build it on, right? And it took me way longer to do this than laying down all of that vegetation with the slopes in the previous clip, that's for sure. There we go. It's already looking so much better with that train track embedded like that. That's neat. Maybe what I should do is add some 1x2 black tiles and some 1x1 black tiles on the edge of it so it looks balanced like the other stuff. I don't know. I don't really mind it being bare like that as well. You know it's flex track no matter how you dress it up, right? But doesn't that look so much better? So I made sure to keep that green edge all the way along on the exterior and also in the interior track. Yeah, that's awesome. I've got a lonely bunny rabbit sitting there. That's where I plan to put the bonsai tree. So that's going to be pretty neat. I was thinking maybe I should put the bonsai tree there, or maybe I should put the bonsai tree over here. But I think this is going to be more of like a large seating area, and I think the space of it over here is just going to be better. Also, you're going to see it there. I know it doesn't make sense because it's beside a construction site, but this is a construction site for a skyscraper. So eventually they'd have like a nice courtyard there. They've just built the courtyard first. That's what we're going to call it. That's the story. And this looks substantially better as well. The cheese slopes and the slopes add a nice texture to the outside studs there. The 2 studs that we got to work with. It's pretty nice. And then the little mini spruces, bushes, and our trees below this train track. I've actually been talking about adding trees underneath this train track for quite some time. All right, let's continue with the texture details right over here. Actually, before we start that, yes, I know there's going to be comments about this. I'm aware. I'm going to tack it down with plates. I think there is a slight separation happening here, a slight misalignment that I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to fix, but I'm hoping I can fix it all with plates in the end. 1x2 slopes and 1x1 cheese slopes. We've laid a lot of them today. They look good though. I can agree with that. It looks pretty sweet. You know what? I don't mind using those little pre-molded trees too. I think they look good. And the bushes, they're a classic. They're just vintage. I love them. Pretty pleased with the outcome of this, everybody. It's coming along great. Started at 8:30 a.m. It's now 5:30 p.m. It's taken a long time to do this. I'm really excited about dulling up the space around this pillar here. I actually had to notch a base plate like with a razor blade, and that's how I was able to get it around that pillar. I love seeing that yellow and blue passenger train come zipping around this corner. It actually looks really good in this shot. So I'm about to install the bonsai tree. Just a quick note on how I did it. I removed it from its pot. It was just sitting on a turntable. And then I removed it from the circular plate which sat on that turntable. I just put a 2x6 on the bottom. I think it's going to be easier to plant that way, I guess. I also replaced one of the pieces on the back. It was like this large slope that was sticking off the rear of it there, and that would just make it difficult to integrate into the mills, because that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to inset this into the mills. So I made a few modifications to make that easier. After removing that slope, I actually removed the brick beside it, and these side panels here are now held on by snot bricks. The struggle is real with the bonsai tree. I really don't know what to do in this area. I just put my kids to sleep and it's like getting pretty late. I've been building Lego all day. I try to place the bonsai tree in like 2 different positions, and I'm like putting these other trees around it. Maybe these trees are too tall. A lot of things going through my mind here. Like, I have a good idea of what I want to do with this area, but I don't want to rush it. At this particular point at night, I feel pretty happy with the day. Built some awesome trees using some new pieces and some new techniques. This is all really nicely textured. Love the look of that with the integration of the trees and the bushes and all the slopes. Really just elevates this area. Just, I don't know, like there's something about all those studs that were driving me pretty crazy. Now over here still needs some work. This bonsai tree is sort of playing with my mind a little bit. I know that I've got to put like a planter around it, and then sort of like frame it with some sort of walkway and put a bench there so people can come sit by the bonsai tree. These trees are awesome. They look really good when they're grouped together. And I want to put a group of them here. I'm not sure about this group over there, but there is some void space. And what I need to do is actually just go around and texture all of this as well, exactly how I did it here. And that'll fill in that area, because when you put some small trees and bushes under there, it's really going to make it look a lot better, just less open space. But I don't really know exactly what I want to do with this area here. For sure has to be some sort of seating area. I really like this hedge that I put in, but I think that hedge might actually have to wrap all the way around. And I think that would look really cool if that one long hedge wrapped all the way around to like this beam here. So I think that would look really neat, and I'll probably do that. But I just got to sleep on this area here. It's been a long day. It's already like 7:30, so I can't really think of what to do here and then actually integrate it properly, and I feel like I'm rushing it at this point. So yeah, I'm really happy with what we did today. That bonsai tree is going to look pretty cool over there, and along with all of these new trees and all of this new texture. Leveling up the Lego City with more detail. Feels pretty awesome. Everybody, thank you so much for coming on by. Let me know what you think by commenting below. Remember, like, subscribe, and stay tuned for some more great stuff. And farewell.